I'm Thorne Moore and I write historical mysteries and domestic noir, which means I write books that have crimes but no detectives. I'm not really bothered about the who, how, when or where that crimes happen. I'm just interested in why they happen and what their consequences are. I was brought up in Luton and I now live in North Pembrokeshire, and I use both of those as settings for my books. This is my first novel, A Time for Silence, and it's set in a Pembrokeshire cottage called Cwmderwen, which was inspired by a derelict cottage at the end of my garden. The character in it, Sarah, comes across the cottage and she realises that it was where her grandparents lived, and then she discovers that her grandfather, John Owen, was murdered there. So she sets out to discover who did it and why nobody will talk about it. Interwoven with the story of her investigations is the story of her grandmother, Gwen Owen, and what really happened in the 1930s and 40s. My latest novel, The Covenant, is a prequel to A Time for Silence. It's set in the same cottage of Cwmderwen with the same family, the Owens, but it starts in the 19th century and it follows the story of Leah, who is the aunt of John Owen, as she struggles to hold on to the 24 acres, 1 rood and 8 perches which make up their very small farm. She's determined to pass it on to her nephew John, whatever the cost. These two books are set in the fictional town of Lyford, which is my version of Luton. Mother Love is about 3 women in 1990 who become mothers, but there's only 2 babies and they finish up with the wrong women, which means that it's a dream come true for 2 of the women and the start of a living nightmare for the other one. And 21 years later, the daughters set out to find out how they come to be with the wrong mothers, and all their lives get turned upside down as a result. The other one, The Unravelling, is about a middle-aged woman, Karen, who suddenly, out of the blue, for no reason, remembers this golden girl that she knew at school when she was 10, Serena Wynne. And she becomes obsessed with finding out what happened to Serena and what the traumatic event was that has resulted in Karen wiping it out of her memory, because whatever it was, it's left her mentally damaged. And as she tracks down all her old friends from school, she discovers they've all been damaged by whatever it was. And it's only by acknowledging the truth that they can get past it and move on. These 2 books, Shadows and Long Shadows, are set in Pembrokeshire again in a fictional mansion called Llys in Shadows, my character Kate has an unfortunate gift, which is actually a curse, in that she can tune into the echoes or shadows of past tragedies. And when she comes to Llys, she immediately starts detecting various tragedies from the past in the stones of the house. And she's so preoccupied with trying to cope with her feelings towards this that she fails to notice new shadows emerging around her. The old tragedies in the house are never explained in the book because they're lost in history. But they are explained in Long Shadows, which is 3 novellas featuring 3 women who lived in Llys in the past. There's Nellie Skeal, who was the Victorian housekeeper, who has nowhere else to go. There's Elizabeth Powell, 17th century daughter of the house, whose one dream is to be able to stay in the house forever. And there's Angharad, the 14th century girl, whose one dream is to escape it if at all possible. So those are my novels, and I hope you'll find something amongst them of interest to you. Thank you for listening.